Often when I get a business leader, they want to build a team of creative problem solvers. They recognize that this journey has to become a part of their culture. They have to enable the behaviors, the conversations, and the type of culture that supports everyone coming up with new ways forward.
Welcome to Engage Presents. I'm Engage co-founder and president Jake Olson. In this interview series, I ask Engage talent the most common questions we hear from event planners to help you get to know them and their stories in 15 minutes or less. Thanks for listening. Welcome to another episode of Engage Presents. I'm Engage president Jake Olson. Alongside me today, a very special lady, Sara Frasca. Sara is an innovation expert, a positive disruptor, and an award-winning small business owner. Sara, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me, Jake. It's really an honor.
Yes. All right. So you do a lot. You've done a lot. Obviously, we're talking about speaking. What is your favorite thing about being a presenter or speaker?
Well, this may be trite, but I think this is true. And really, my truth for speaking is just to inspire an audience, to engage people in thinking differently, and to leave them with some tools that they can use from that day forward. So the ability to make a connection, have an audience, really have aha moments, and then leave that day changed forever.
I love that. So you call innovation a journey. Can you explain what that looks like in action?
Yeah, absolutely. So the reason that I believe it's a journey is that, it doesn't happen overnight. It's building the practice, it's practicing the muscle, it's honing the skills over and over, and it does take some time. So as you practice this, it gets easier, it gets better, and that's why I call it a journey, because it's not, again, it's not a short overnight system. It happens over time.
Can you explain just, what would cause someone to want to start that journey?
Yeah, of course. You know, a lot of people have the interest to kind of leapfrog to the end. They say, like, oh, I want to be, innovative. I want to be a creative problem solver. I want to solve, whatever the challenge is that the business has. But they don't recognize that you can't just go sit in a boardroom and come up with lots of ideas.
Right.
The opposite is actually true. You have to have those muscles developed and practiced over time in order to be able to sit in the boardroom and come up with spontaneous ideas. And so I would say often when I get a business leader, they want to build a team of creative problem solvers. They recognize that this journey has to become a part of their culture. They have to enable the behaviors, the conversations, and the type of culture that supports everyone coming up with new ways forward.
Love that. Absolutely love that. You also kind of talk about imagination, kind of what role does imagination play when we're talking about like real life business challenges?
Imagination, in my opinion, is coming up with things that don't exist in the present. Then, if we can imagine something, we can create the path to put that out there. Um, that's what, in my opinion, the kind of innovation brings to the forefront, and bringing solutions that may mirror what our imagination could come up with.
Do you kind of yourself like visualize a lot? You kind of explain that to me. A part of that is like, envisioning kind of what you want something to look like.
Yeah, I would say that I have always been a very creative person. I have a great sense of creativity or an imagination. There's a childlike quality that I think is a piece of it, and it's not caring what anybody else thinks. I mean, when we're 4-year-olds, we don't care if someone thinks, judges us that we color a giraffe purple, or,
Right.
something crazy. And it's only as adults that we start to stifle that. But when you can recognize that that's actually a part of the process of coming up with new solutions, of building a path towards an innovation, then you kind of let yourself go a little bit, and you're not judging yourself and you're not allowing others to judge you. There's also a part as a business leader or an organization owner where you have to start enforcing a safety and security around having imagination. You have to make sure that there's no fear of failure, that people aren't ostracized for coming up with new ideas. And so your question is great. I think I have the maybe maturity at this point to understand I come up with all sorts of wacky, crazy ideas.
Right.
Some of them might have a little bit of a nugget of a path to an actual solution. I don't judge myself. I don't allow others to judge me. And I think I hopefully am teaching people to have that type of culture in a corporation, in a business where they can find that path.
And you bring up something that I wanted to ask you when you're kind of talking about that near the end there of, how can you encourage leaders or how can leaders encourage their teams to be risk takers without losing kind of that maturity, without losing that culture of accountability?
Totally. Well, there's lots of amazing examples in the world of businesses that have lost everything because they have had that fear of failure. They have thwarted the type of path forward that would allow creative solutions. And so, as we think about, or as I coach clients, as I coach organizations, oftentimes I can showcase the bad examples, right? Don't do this. Don't build a culture that doesn't allow your people to see a possibility that is outside the lines of what anyone thought possible, right?
Yeah,
So showcasing those that have gone before us and have failed is a good way to showcase this is what we don't want. We want to take a different path. And that path oftentimes is allowing people to have a little bit more freedom and some failure. Failure is not always a bad thing. It's a path that didn't work. And so now we know one more example of where not to go, and we can go in a different direction.
absolutely. Thomas Edison, a light bulb, if I
That's
remember
right.
correctly. Yep.
So many great examples of people who have had to persist through a lot of adversity.
So when it comes to uncertainty or failure, because failure can be a good thing, but it does maybe produce some uncertainty in the meantime. But how can you help teams boost morale and engagement in those times so that they can see the fruit of failure?
Yeah. Well, I think it has to come from the top. And I mean, Jake, I find so often that as the leadership goes, so does the rest of the organization, right? And so honestly, getting buy-in from the leaders at the top is instrumental. Once they believe in it, then you've got to showcase good examples of how failures have not led to people losing their job or people being ostracized. And often these very, very human emotional components, it's really Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's like when people are fearful, they aren't going to be comfortable taking the leap. So get the leadership on board, showcase this cultural change and this kind of allowance of mistakes, allowance of failures. Maybe it's taking baby steps towards solutions so that we're kind of reducing the risk.
Right.
Those are the small ways that we can start to kind of dip our toe in the water, make changes in an organization and in the culture. And eventually, as we continue to practice and build it, people become more trusting. Oh, don't worry. We're going to pick each other up if we fall. Oh gosh, if we have a failure here, we'll know we can't go in that path. And then we've got this other path. And then it starts to just become something that has momentum within a business, and people will start to do it at all areas of the business.
Love that. And you kind of have real life, expertise in that as you've done that. We said, you're innovator disruptor, you own your own small businesses. Kind of explain, we have a lot of speakers that are really great presenters, and by all means, they are experts in their field, but there is something to be said about someone who's literally doing it themselves. So kind of explain where those kind of crossroads meet of you doing this and then presenting about it.
Of course. Well, it's kind of a funny journey. It's taken a lot of different kind of meandering paths, but I think that's the fun of it. I started my career at General Mills and I was all in right from the get-go. I worked with really intelligent, fun, clever people. It was a wonderful place to get a start. A few years, maybe it was about 10 years after, I actually took a 2-year hiatus to support a family member that was going to school elsewhere. So I moved. I I was a part of a startup community. It was a tech-based organization, and it was so entrepreneurial and so different than anything I had been a part of. Then I went back to General Mills and did about another decade. And so the interesting thing is, I went back as a totally different leader. I now had the ability to question things differently. I had that entrepreneurial grit. I had some startup fire in my belly. And so I went back to General Mills, corporate America, big processes, lots of systems, and I would hopefully with a little bit of humility, but I would think, well, wait a minute, why do we have to do it that way? What if we tried this? And so I was able to, again, kind of infuse my teams and infuse the culture with a little bit of questioning the status quo, trying to find new boundaries. So that was a really, really fun thing for me to see. And often when I have large organizations that I'm coaching or working with, I am helping them to see how those questions can lead to efficiencies. It can lead to reduction of work. One year I was working with a major automotive manufacturer, and we took their innovation process from 72 steps. Can you imagine? 72 steps down to three. And
Oh
so,
my God.
yeah. So, I mean, the I would say the red tape involved in coming up with new ideas was, I mean, would you ever even want to bring a new idea forward? No. And so now that it's only 3 steps, now we can have, people coming up with ideas and thinking through different ways of solving issues, etc. All right. So you asked about the small business.
Yes.
Um, I ended up opening a restaurant, and that's kind of fun. I actually I do it to carry on my family's legacy. I'm a third generation to serve my grandmother's food, so that's really special for me. But
Nice.
it allowed me to see how I could bring the systems and processes to life in a smaller or mid-sized business. And so I coach very large, Fortune 100 companies around the world, but I'm also able to use those systems and that coaching and those tools to help any size organization. So it's been really fun for me. I work in a number of different industries and a number of different sizes.
Sure, that's amazing, and thank you so much for sharing. Lastly, just because I feel like work with so many companies and bring such great results, what is kind of your favorite feedback to get especially when you speak? But I mean, maybe just after consulting. But obviously, we're talking about speaking here. So, what is kind of your favorite feedback to get?
Yeah, you know, honestly, I would say I often get feedback right away that people say, "Oh my gosh, that story, it was so, inspiring for me." But when I talk to someone that I have worked with 10 years after I spoke to them, and they come up to me and they say something to the effect of, "I'll never forget when I was in your audience and I thought to myself, I can do it, right? Like I can think differently," or it has helped me in the last decade to think through ways of navigating challenges in a new way. To know that I've had a lasting impact on people is honestly, I mean, it gives me goosebumps. I'm incredibly honored to know that I have, even in a small way, shifted people's thinking to help them be more empowered, more apt to come up with ways of positively creating win-win for the business and also for those that the business is serving.
Well, Sarah, we certainly can vouch for that. So we appreciate you trusting us to help you with that. And if you want to learn more about Sarah and what she speaks about, what she does, you can visit letsengage.com and check out our profile there. If you want to taste her grandmother's cooking, you can travel to Florida. Luckily, she's right by me, so I have an easy way of doing this. But definitely check out that restaurant. You want to give that restaurant name just in case anyone is
Got it. Thanks, Jake. It's Trasca and Company Eatery in Ponte Vedra Beach.
there's very few. I shouldn't say this publicly because I feel like it's hidden gem. There's very few more beautiful places in this country than Ponte Vedra Beach. So Thank you, Sarah, for just enlightening us, giving us your insight and sharing with us today.
Thank you, Jake. Really appreciate the time.
Stay tuned for more Engage Presents.